Krishna, you're the owner, CEO of Stellar IT Group. You have offices in Mexico, the UK, and India. And just 5 years ago, your company had 0 employees, 0 in revenue. And today, 200 employees in the US and 25 million in revenue.
The relentless pursuit to hire top-shelf software engineers is what driving all of it, along with people being significantly cheaper in Europe, UK, Canada, and Mexico too. Why they do all this stuff is also kind of justified, making it difficult for people to settle here in the US. There are so many different ways to becoming an entrepreneur here, even on a visa.
Krishna.
Hi Raj.
Thank you for taking the time. I do appreciate it.
Appreciate it. This is the first time that I'm doing it, and I'm excited to do the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. You've built an incredible company. You're the owner, CEO of Stellar IT Group. You do staff augmentation and IT services for really clients across the nation, but you're based in St. Louis. You have offices in Mexico, the UK, and India. And just 5 years ago, your company had 0 employees, 0 in revenue. And today, 200 employees in the US, primarily engineers, if I'm correct.
Absolutely.
And then 25 million in revenue.
Yes.
So very excited to talk to you today. Appreciate your time. And in your own words, I think it would be helpful if you could tell us exactly what your company does, because I'm not in the IT space.
For sure. Thank you very much. Feels great to hear it from a third person, because, every day is a grind and you just don't look back enough, I guess, with the day-to-day stuff going. But yeah, it feels good. It's a great journey. And I still feel we're just getting started. We have a lot more to go and achieve. And we are still young and small. That's how I would assess our companies at the moment. In terms of what we do, we really do 2 things. One is provide mid-market and large, like Fortune 100, Fortune 200 clients with enterprise business solutions. Meaning, we typically work with decision makers at these organizations, understand what it is they are trying to build, understand their roadmap, and typically align ourselves with their digital transformation strategy and be a partner for them. It could be building a totally custom enterprise application from scratch, set of APIs, front-end apps, that kind of thing, or rolling out an ERP solution like an SAP or an Oracle-based ERP solution that would basically transform their supply chain, retail, and logistics operations, that sort of a thing. So it really depends, but we just try to be, provide enterprise business solutions. That's exactly what we do. And the way we kind of differentiate ourselves from the Accentures, Deloittes, all these big giant companies is by being capability enablers for our clients. Meaning a lot of the times, whether particularly I know for a fact that in our St. Louis region, T.U.T, Worldwide Technology, these guys are big and dominate the digital transformation and enterprise software markets here. And they try to own stuff, basically take a module of business operations or a key piece of the business at a client location, and they try to own, operate, maintain, upgrade, all that sort of stuff. Whereas our focus is to step in as a partner and create the capability by training the full-time employees at these client locations with all the needed upskilling, training, and we would go set things up. And once things are stable, move to a different part of the organization and work with other stakeholders on other, on other enterprise projects, things like that. So capability enablement is a key differentiator for us in the enterprise software market. Apart from it, staff augmentation, basically that's the second thing we do, and we basically are doing two good things, like helping people get jobs, putting a smile on people's face, by helping them at the right time find the right sort of opportunity and making a difference for them, and also solving key talent and solving key business challenges through people for our clients. So these are the two things that we do, in our company.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And if I'm just to make sure that I'm understanding correctly, when you go in a company, your goal is to empower the team members to take what you're teaching them or implementing and run the system or run whatever it is.
Yes.
Versus you being with the company along the 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and continuing to bill them monthly and run the system, maintain the system for them. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Yes, we do not try to own, the pieces of the critical pieces of software, which the big guys try to do, and transition it off to the good hands of our clients. Instead of trying to own and harbor control on key pieces of the business.
So a large part of what you do is also education, correct? Because you have to educate some of these departments or leaders so that they're empowered to take control once you're done working with them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a key piece as well. Because technology, it keeps on evolving every 3 to 5 years. There's some new thing. And oftentimes, large enterprises with hundreds and thousands of IT employees, they sort of like lag behind in a bit in the skills realm. So we try to bring in experts in a domain in niche areas of software engineering, through the engagement with our clients, and transform, be the initial catalyst to get the technology roadmap updated, get new tools, technologies, implemented in the platforms of our clients. And then, that there would be the transition piece where, we train and hand off what we built. And, we also help create a sustainable roadmap so that, things get done in a specific way, and the client achieves the digital transformation goals they have.
So now that we know kind of at a high level the way your company's operating today, I would love to know just how you got started in the world of IT and also entrepreneurship. When you were growing up, did you have any exposure to the industry you're in or to entrepreneurship in general? Or can you give us some background there?
Yes, absolutely. My background is actually, I'm born and brought up in India. So my mom, played a key role in our childhood, essentially molding us, as we grow up. And a lot of attributes that I have today, whether it's ambition, working hard, dreaming big, a lot of these things, and even entrepreneurship, the drive to be an entrepreneur, things like that, came from my mom. And even, it's a very small business in India that my mom did, but it is very much meaningful for our family, because we started out as a lower middle class family in India, but only through the business that my mom and also my father, worked through, we achieved a good amount of, financial capability to grow further as a family. And I'm born and brought up there. The seeds for entrepreneurship is sown by my mom's thoughts and her guidance about how I should think about and what I should expect from life. Particularly as a child through my teenage years. And then, after finishing my bachelor's of engineering in India, I came here for grad school. I have a master's degree in electrical engineering from Santa Clara University. I personally lived in San Francisco Bay Area a lot. And after my master's, worked for close to 9-10 years in the IT industry itself. Worked for big companies, Google, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Macy's, consultant at Walmart. Big, large enterprise customers I worked, and I wore different hats. My specialization within software engineering has been the DevOps, infrastructure engineering, and cloud security, security in general. These are the key areas of software engineering that I'm personally an expert at. But I've also done roles as a enterprise solutions architect, where I have managed a portfolio of enterprise applications, and I've seen how things work at scale. Like, it's one thing to architect a software application or a website to run for 100,000 customers. And, if you have like a very busy site like Walmart.com, that gets like 30,000, 50,000 requests a second, then when you are architecting those applications, your choices would be different. So, I've seen these things firsthand. And, I'll digress a little bit. Like, DevOps, as a software engineering practice, allows you to do that. You get like the bird's eye view at a high level on what your application is, what are the components inside it, what are the dependencies for your application, who uses your application upstream, how do you package it, test it, deploy it, and release different versions of your application. That's the skill I've learned and mastered. Because of it, oftentimes if there are like 100 software engineers, there will be like 2 or 3 of us. Because you don't need like an army of DevOps engineers. But we typically package, deploy, and release applications, all the applications in the company, those 2-3 people. So we get to see the whole landscape, how things get done, why, when specific security or technology changes or platform changes are made, we get to know why. And we also try, like if you work at these places as a DevOps engineer for a long time, like several years, you will see what broke when traffic increased, when there are more orders per minute, what broke, why they broke. You are oftentimes investigating these issues along with with the stakeholders that own that piece of software within the company. So, choosing that also helped me in a way to become a good software engineer, a good engineering leader in general.
Would you say you had a lot of great leaders that you worked for in some of these larger organizations that helped kind of form your model of leadership today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's actually a key. I've worked for several leaders. Do you want me to go talk about some of that stuff?
If there's anything that stands out to you in terms of maybe something you learned from someone at one of those larger organizations you were with.
Yeah, for sure. There are several epiphanies or life-changing moments in my IT career that really changed and opened my mind. Like one thing I'd say is I worked for close to maybe 2 years or something at Google, particularly Google's cloud division. And, working at Google really opened my eyes, I would say. It's one thing to work for other enterprise software companies. We have a word called as COTS, commercial off-the-shelf systems. So you get like packaged software from another enterprise software company, you just build and deploy it in your environment. But every software company's enterprise environment platform is unique. And even the problems they solve for will also be unique. So what happens is oftentimes we get into these COTS products where they do not scale, they're not flexible, they do not work in your environment, but your company already paid millions of dollars to Splunk or IBM or somebody. And since they made that spend, you have to use that, And we used to struggle. We typically write scripts or commands, or you write custom plugins that would bridge the incapabilities of this tool to work in our environment. But at Google, they say everything is software, so everything and anything can be changed. So that's the mindset they have in Google. So if a piece of software is not sitting well in Google's ecosystem of applications, they'd say just change it. But in the other companies, what would happen is we used to convince leadership, like, for this so and so reason, this IBM tool has this limitation, so this cannot be done. That's what we used to tell our leadership, and our leadership used to accept. But at Google, it's not like that. Oh, this is IBM tool. Go talk to IBM, get the source code for this tool, change the source code. We will create Google's version of IBM tool, and that tool will exactly behave and work the way we want it to.
That's an amazing mindset to have.
Yeah.
Anything can be changed.
And everything is software defined.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure you're using bits and pieces of that or other tips that you've picked up in your current leadership style. To go from 0 to 25 million in 5 years, you have to be a strong leader. What would you say your leadership style looks like today? Are you someone that is really focused on company culture and not micromanaging the team, or are you someone who's really results driven and every single day hammering down on exactly what needs to be done? Can you share a little bit of what your leadership looks like?
Absolutely, sure. And you've laid out a whole bunch of points in your question itself. That's pretty much what building and organizing teams is pretty much what I'm doing day to day these days. Very occasionally I get to write code and debug stuff and things like that, but pretty much I'm sort of like an enabler within our company, providing resources, forming teams around opportunities, and working with the C-level execs of our clients, to sort of understand their strategies and their plans and align our goals and plans for the client. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. In terms of the leadership, I think hiring smart people is the most important thing, but it is often, particularly I'm talking about small to medium businesses like ours. There would only be few brilliant people in these companies, and that's often the reason why the companies stay small to medium. So I try to, whenever we try to hire people. One bar I have is this guy smarter than me? Is this guy someone that I can learn from? So I'm hiring a direct report, for example. That's what I look for. Can I go for advice to this person? Say everything goes well, he's within the company reporting to me. Can I go and ask him advice? Will he? How does he think? Is he smarter? So that's one key thing around hiring that I keep in mind. And in terms of leadership style, another thing that I personally am doing different, I feel, is a lot of companies, they say we have family atmosphere, and all that. That is good. But we, in our Stellar IT group, we try to find the A players and try to operate like a sports team. In the sense, like, you are constantly measured. What is the value you are bringing to the table, to the organization this day, this week, quarter, year? What's the value you are providing? What's being result driven is very, very key. And my thing has been to lose even average employees. Like, oftentimes, when you hire 100 people, you would also accumulate a whole bunch of average performers. When I say average performers, these people are like, they perform their job duties, they do not have the ability or the capabilities or willingness to go above their job and deliver more, probably try and get a promotion. They're not like motivated or keen on that. you know these are kind of like average performers. And even I tend to lose them over the years. Those A players who are always like result driven, motivated, ambitious, who goes above and beyond and gets stuff done. They seem to enjoy our team, our culture, my leadership, and things like that. And one thing different we do, particularly for our internal teams, in our group of companies, is year-long hiring and year-long assessments, performance assessments. When we do year-long hiring, what happens is there's always that hungry guy, that ambitious guy, that smart guy, whom we are not missing out. Meaning that, even though we do not have roles, we typically we tend to hire people and overburden ourselves with payroll costs and things like that. And I feel that is okay, because we are in this pursuit of excellence and creating these A players, the sports teams, that always check, or did you win the championship this year? Did you bring the cup home or not? That's how sports teams are judged. That's how we try to, judge also ourselves. There can be n number of obstacles coming our way. Things can go wrong, but, you want to have the can-do attitude and willingness to look around yourself, trying to solve problems and generate results for the customers that demand us. And we should be very predictable for our enterprise customers. So that's what we strive for. In terms of the leadership, I think that's one of the key pieces. And I like bad news first, and I like truth, no sugarcoating, no need to butter up anybody's ego. Just tell the truth. Even if it is disheartening or not ideal in the conversation, tell that first. That's the way I run my meetings as well. Yeah.
You shared a lot of great pieces of information there. One thing I'd like to dig into, well, two things, but the first one is you mentioned consistently measuring team members' performance. Mm-hmm. What are like some specific KPIs or other indicators that you're measuring for when it comes to any of the positions in your company? I'm assuming the easiest for us to talk about is perhaps the engineers, since primarily you employ engineers.
Yes. So even within engineers, also based on their function, things like that, it sort of the metrics would vary. But for us, we are all like SOW driven. We get like statement of work, that gets clearly outlined project goals. It is something that we sign with the clients at the beginning of our engagement. So what sort of a code needs to be built, what sort of code quality checks it should pass, and what is the timeline, what is the cost of building that software. We get all that stuff upfront. So once we get the SOW and we jump on the project, whether the key deliverable would be client's satisfaction on the quality of the project, and whether as a team we delivered that project on time or not. And these projects are also like multidisciplinary, in the sense like there would be like a scrum master and a product owner, a project manager, a technical project manager, several developers, several testers, and all these typically we call them two pizza teams, like 10 to 15 people, software engineers of different capabilities come together, build that piece of software for the client. And sometimes it's in a hybrid delivery model, meaning like You have of these 15 people, you would have like 4 or 5 people here in St. Louis or in New Jersey, sitting in front of in the client's office, talking in person to the stakeholders at the client's location. And these guys would have direct reports in UK or Canada or India from one of our offshore development centers. So that's like a hybrid model that we found a lot of success at. Clients are not necessarily happy with 100% outsourcing their project to us, and we found the happy medium in between. So, like generally, the KPIs are project driven, and we do have individualized KPIs also for software developers. We kind of look at the lines of code, number of pull requests, and also, if it's a software engineer that worked for several years, we also look at historically then the number of bugs in the pieces of software they wrote. This guy would have moved from one customer to a project at one customer to another project in another customer, but we still maintain the software there in the other customer. So we kind of know, okay, this guy wrote this caching or logging framework or a QA testing framework, how it is performing over a period of a couple of years after his after his work or not, we get to see it. So if the software isn't thrown away out the door, once this guy is out the door, oftentimes it means it's good, reliable software that does something meaningful for the customer. So we have different KPIs essentially for programmers, sales guys, and also project managers and stuff. They typically get judged whether client gave us what sort of rating the client gave us when upon delivery of the software, and whether it's within budget and timeline and things like that. Yeah.
I think the specific example about the lines of code and then the history, I think is super smart. But I really like how all of your metrics, the ones you mentioned at least, are all centered around this is what we promised the customer. Did we do that?
Yes.
So it's relatively simple for the team. Like, this is what we're promising. This is what you're measured on.
Yeah.
Now let's deliver.
Oftentimes I let these SOWs slip a quarter, mainly because to manage the expectations with our customers is really the key. If we embark on open-ended exploratory SOWs, oftentimes client may come back and say like, hey, we thought we thought you would build a rhinoceros for us, whereas I was looking, whereas I see an elephant in front of me. So we try to lock it down and set clear expectations and then jump on it.
That makes sense, and I'm sure the clients appreciate the communication. It really helps to bring clarity for everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of great success stories and case studies from enterprise customers, and that's part of the job satisfaction for me to hear a client say that hey, you guys have done a great job and delivered this for us. It scales nicely, it performs good. We really appreciate what Fast Search or Stellar IT Group has done for us. That's, at the end of the day, that is my job satisfaction.
That's a great thing you brought up. I would love to hear a case study if there's one that kind of like sticks out for you. But before we jump into that, earlier on in the conversation, you mentioned hiring smart people, hiring A players.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of hiring for your company. You do a lot of hiring for other companies. If I want to go out and hire a smart person, it's industry specific to a certain extent, but generally speaking, what do I look for? Where do I start?
Typical location for IT software engineers that we start for is LinkedIn. And oftentimes the engineer you want to hire is often not your job applicant. Say you post a job on LinkedIn saying I want to hire an enterprise software architect with TIPCO experience or whatever. Oftentimes the people who apply for the job are not necessarily the smartest, you know, but there might be some guy working at MasterCard or RGA or Charter, who's like a gem, who's like a total geek and expert in TIBCO software. And that guy is actually not looking for a job. He's happily, drawing great salary in a great team, and he's happily working. So for us, we found a lot of success in finding these A players by looking up people and referrals, looking up people on LinkedIn and cold prospecting them. Say not like saying like, hey, I'm trying to hire a TIPCO architect, but saying like, hey, we came across your profile. We are a headhunting firm for several large customers in St. Louis area. You seem to do great stuff. We just want to connect with you and learn what it is that you're building, things like that, build a relationship so that we can eventually help you when you're ready or when it made sense. And oftentimes, you would have spoken to a candidate, like 6-9 months ago, but you typically pitch that candidate today. And if the decision maker that wants to hire this TIPCO architect, wants to talk to that person, we do the matchmaking. So that is how, this is all like a long-term game, like it's not like you will find instant answers, essentially. And referrals, the power of referrals also is something that I would like to stress here, because whether it is getting projects for my company or finding great software engineers, referrals has been a key source for us. You and I are friends. We are trying to do real estate software. I would probably touch base with you and ask, hey Raj, we are looking for a guy that built real estate software, applications. Who is the best guy you know? And oftentimes you would give out a couple of names and send out a couple of texts introducing, connecting me and that person. And oftentimes that will be the real gem, that we did not know, that LinkedIn did not tell us. This guy wouldn't check the jobs we post, and this guy wouldn't apply for online jobs. Some people are super passive. They're just wishful, like, yeah, this job is good for me. It takes care of all of my needs, but I'm looking for a real challenge. Those are the real good software engineers that we really want to target and hire. So attending conferences, attending meetups, technology meetups, and hosting some of them, sponsoring some of them.
Once you find somebody, what are you looking for, or what kind of tests are you using to know if they're that smart A player? Because I think it's maybe not easy, but it's probably typical that somebody will put forth a very compelling resume.
Absolutely.
Perhaps be very good at interviewing. But is there something beyond that to where you can tell, or it helps to give you an indication of, this is the type of person you're looking for?
Actually, it is slightly very easy for tech fields. Say we're trying to hire a cloud programmer or a Java programmer or a Python programmer, things like that. What we do a little different compared to other staffing firms is we send these Hacker Earth assessments and things like that. Not all companies are doing those things today, but some people are doing it. We certainly do it for the technical pieces. So what that is like, say we post a job, you apply for for a position that we posted. One of our recruiters would get in touch with you and take your email address and send you an assessment. So that assessment is basically pruned and set by, software by like good software engineers in our company. And it would have like a couple of coding problems and stuff like that. And we would look at the code first and see if the code that the job applicant wrote, is it good or bad, whether it works or not. And a differentiation piece we do is also the non-obvious things. Has this guy written unit tests for the code without us making it obvious that he needs to write unit tests? Good software engineers do that, So these are all great habits of hardcore, passionate software engineers that like an average Joe would not have. Like this. I'm just throwing you one example. But through these tech assessments, we get a score, and we can be reasonably sure, because these assessment software, it also records the screen and shows whether they have done Google searches or whether they have copy pasted code, during this exam, things like that. So we have a reasonably solid assessment on the technical skills of the person. But there would be certain roles. Say you are trying to hire a product manager or a salesperson or project manager. Those roles, these assessments would not be there. So what we do is we set aside video. We do video interviews. We set aside, once we have a good idea that this is the software engineer, at least on paper, based on the resume that our client is looking for, we typically do like a 45-minute video interview with the candidate. And we typically try to ask them a whole bunch of questions, and we try to focus on like case studies. Hey, you're working at company X and doing this project, tell me the case study. When we ask specific questions, what is this in technical project management? Everybody knows that. But if you ask them, hey, tell me about this project and tell me what went wrong, how you solved it, what are the challenges you faced while you are doing this project, and what trade-offs or decisions have you made in the end, things like that. When we dig deep and try to talk to them for 45 minutes and build a clear, compelling write-up for the candidate, and we present the write-up and the resume of the candidate to the hiring manager. So this kind of like paying attention and doing some amount of clear due diligence before submitting to the client helped lend us credibility, things like that, with our customers as well.
I like it. I think it's a very thorough approach. And you mentioned the case study for the candidate. So that brings us back to the case study. If you have one that stands out for your company that you'd like to share.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know if you have one that maybe is with a larger company. I think that would be fun to hear if you could share. You mentioned the Fortune 500, 100 companies you've worked with.
Yeah. Sure. So one fond memory, that I personally have is with Silicon Valley Bank. This is before all of this happened. I'm talking 2019, 2020 time. In those years, I worked hand in hand with several leaders in the highest places at Silicon Valley Bank, and we are called in mainly to modernize the DevOps and CI/CD platforms that SVB has. So it started with me personally being the engineer dedicated for the project, to begin with. But
and just real quick on that, were you personally involved in that because your company was still growing at that time?
Yeah.
Okay. And because they're a big client?
Yes. Yeah. At that point in time, it is a big client for us, and it is a big deal for us too. So I saw a whole bunch of potential to do great work, there, mainly because the customer is technologically backward. You know, eh, that in that kind of like a low bar environment, you go there, everything you do from day one is like excellence to them, right? So that's the situation. I'm talking candidly here. But yeah, I mean, so like. Yeah, it started out as a single person engagement, and I like sort of like took stock of the applications and the landscape, kind of tooling around there, things like that. And we have introduced specific tools like Jenkins. I'm not expecting you to know this stuff, but we introduced, we installed and configured these tools for the first time there, and started onboarding applications onto these enterprise CI/CD tools. CI/CD stands for continuous integration and continuous deployments. So it's a way to basically release applications onto remote servers continuously. So we introduced all these tools and started working, slowly started taking more and more work based on the amount of inventory of the work that we discovered to get done. I had total leadership support there, us being a niche, external, small vendor, there at SVB at that point in time. And, we start bringing in, our own employees to do the additional work discovered. And at one point in time, we had like close to 10 people there, along with me there. And we are pretty much running the floor for all SVB applications up until that point in time, and we owned and operated all the non-prod environments from up to stage, from dev, QA, sandbox, and UAT environments. So that's looking back 1 year, 1.5 years into that engagement, looking back, and I was sitting in a conference room one day, and then I was like, wow, I grew this engagement to like 10 people now, so yeah, a lot of other stuff happened. Bigger players like Cognizant and other players came over and took the baton from us and ran from there and stuff like that. Brilio is a big vendor there as well. So, but yeah, I mean, that is one interesting story. I can go into the nitty gritty stuff, but it's all like technical tidbits.
Sure.
Hey, this worked, that didn't work, so we have to use this. So I'm just keeping it high level for the podcast.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Did the news of SVB impact you in any way? Like, because it seems like you hold that engagement near and dear. Was that like? Did you feel like you spent that time and energy for a pursuit that ultimately could have been, I guess you could say, more successful for the bank itself? If what I'm saying makes any sense. Like, did that news impact you at all?
I have a different perspective, about it, because you are a real estate guy. I will share it with you. Like, the thing is, it's actually hypocrisy. What I'm about to say is companies spend millions of dollars, hire a lot of these talented software engineers, pay them a lot of money, give them free food, perks, all this stuff to get some software, to build some software. That gets 90% of the software built, gets thrown. The code bases, if you go look at GitHub repositories of like large companies, there would be like ghost repositories. Like, this is all code from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, nobody uses it. It's still there because the company owns it, and even the people that build the software left the organization, so, like, software gets built, used for a small amount of time and gets thrown out. So seeing that happen for like 15 years now, I am not worried about all the stuff we built or all the stuff that SVB built being thrown away, because I think those guys are acquired by Chase, right? So JP Morgan would have better enterprise software that would easily scale, things like that. So I'm not worried about that. Definitely for my journey as an entrepreneur, they have given me a sort of like personal validation that I can do it. I have it in me to build these type of companies, and this is something I love, making me realize that this is something I love. I need to do it more and more, take on bigger challenges, put together even bigger teams, do bigger challenges, that sort of a thing. At that point in time, the amount of validation, personally, which that engagement provided, is very enriching and helpful for me. Yeah, like not necessarily impacted by SVB, but I felt sad, it's a pretty legendary institution in the Bay Area. And as I was telling you, I lived in the Bay Area for a long time, so I was even in talks to get some mezzanine debt and all that for M&A capital for our group and things like that, just few months before it happened. But yeah, man, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Ships drown and new ships sail, Yeah.
It's a part of a natural business cycle.
Yes.
You mentioned M&A capital.
Yeah.
So your strategy is primarily growth through acquisition. Would love to hear just how you look, what kind of companies you look for, how you're looking at potential acquisitions, and then how you integrate those into your existing ecosystem.
Absolutely. One key addition that I would need to make is you cannot base the growth of your company on an M&A strategy at any cost. I personally have a lot of good friends, much more accomplished, much more net worth than me and things like that. But all of those guys failed because they tried to grow only through M&A, and by leveraging balance sheet. Does not work at all, But what works is having profitable cash generating companies, having multiple of those. And you can use the balance sheets of the group to use some leverage and do add-on acquisitions. That will be good strategy. And that will be good strategy only if all of your add-ons are profitable and putting money in your pocket. If you have loss-making companies, you should not do M&A. Turn off that thoughts. First, get the house in order. Make sure you are profitable. All the expenses covered. For us, so IT services and staffing companies, meeting payroll is very important. If we have 25 million revenue, we have 15 to 18 million at least in payroll cost. At all cost, being able to meet payroll and meeting payroll out of pocket, not by borrowing money, using a line of credit or use some factoring company, By default, the company has to be profitable, cash generating in itself. As long as you can make it, then use the balance sheet to do add-on acquisitions. That will be very good strategy, to grow your business. And that's pretty much what I try to implement in our group as well. We started out only as one company, but we did 2 acquisitions in the last 3-4 years along the way. But both acquisitions have been strategic. And even to this day, all of my companies are profitable, cash generating. We have very little debt, like ERC, stuff, EIDL loan, very small loans, those kind of things, but nothing like that. And we never have to scratch our pockets for meeting payroll or lacking working capital, that kind of thing. So that means you do not leverage yourself up to the max, and you stay within a risk limit. But taking risk is also important. Having said this caveat, I would say M&A is a great strategy, and every business owner should pursue the M&A method, as a way to grow their business fastly and be strategic, specific, and disciplined in running your businesses, and grow companies like that. It's a great catalyst that can boost your company's profile, and you will be able to grow fast, very fast.
You said something very interesting to me another day, and if we can't share this, just tell me to be quiet. But you said one part of your M&A strategy is you're buying in other countries so you can work for some of the clients you work for in the US in those other countries. Is that one of your primary drivers for the M&A, or is that just one piece of a larger puzzle for why you prefer to acquire some of these companies?
Actually, it has nothing to do with that kind of strategy.
Okay.
We can do acquisitions. I will tell you why we do it.
Sure.
But it's to answer your question, it's unrelated. So why we do it? Like have international presence in nearshoring countries is really talent crunch. Suppose you want to build a piece of enterprise software that is very unique for storyboard, that specializes in multifamily living, real estate, all this stuff. You want to hire 25 talented Java programmers, and you want to hire it in the next 30 days or 60 days, things like that. Given all these companies that are out there in St. Louis that is competing for the same talent pool, 70% chance is that you won't get 25 A-player Java programmers here in the US. That is the ground reality. All the companies are competing to the same talent. Average Joes, there are plenty. You post a job, if you go to Dice or LinkedIn, type Java developer, you'll find 25,000 people local to St. Louis. But those are all average Joes, less experienced people, may not be niche and specific to the kind of software that you want to build. If you narrow it down to people writing Java software for real estate companies located in St. Louis, that's a very small pool. Yeah. And you want 25 of those. It's very tough. Makes sense. And oftentimes you are also riddled by failed IT projects somewhere else. Say you are a leader, with $100 million budget, CapEx budget, or OpEx budget for IT teams. Something would have gone wrong and you have less money now for doing this project, but you have to do this project, but you don't have the money for hiring 25 software engineers in 60 days. You have to wait for annual refresh. Next year you get 100 million again from finance. So that time you should start this project, not now, because you don't have money. So cash crunches, talent crunches, these are the things, and our clients are pushing us to explore internationally, not us trying to do something fancy. Pretty much like, hey, I heard, I heard a pitch from this company, from this Canadian staffing company that has great software engineers. I interviewed a few people, and I am planning to totally hire a couple of programmers from Canada, to do my work. But how about you try to find 5 or 10 more people in Brampton, Canada, or Toronto or Ottawa, there seems to be good people in that locality. Can you get them for me? these kind of demands are what driving us to look internationally and start subsidiary companies in international countries and find talent there, source talent for our customers. The relentless pursuit to hire top shelf software engineers is what driving all of it, along with people being significantly cheaper in Europe, UK. UK is almost at par, I would say, but in Europe you would find great software engineers at a lower price.
What about Canada?
Canada, and Mexico too. They are, a lower priced, great software engineers, higher quality people. And, India as an offshore destination has been the meat and potatoes kind of a situation, essentially for years, for decades now, mastered by our Indian software giants like the TCS, Wipro, Cognizant, Infosys, all these guys. But it's all meat and potato. If you have like 500 or 1,000 people, you hire 200 really strong, solid subject matter experts here in the US and have 800 people, who would just follow the orders of these 200 people in India. So that's the typical hiring model that is in progress for decades here, as much as I understand the models. So, like you find a lower cost, you can hire fastly. We can even hire 100 people in 2 weeks if we want. All of these guys are experienced software engineers in India. You get like scale and all that in India. So that's why companies look for people in India. India, is becoming less of a favorite these days in the recent years, mainly because of the immigration hurdles. Like it used to be easy to bring software engineers to India on a temporary basis for client engagements and send them back to India. But a lot of companies have misused that model, and USCIS caught wind of it. And now they are being careful, so it's not like we cannot bring people from India, like high quality talent from India, but the number of hurdles you need to jump to deliver a person from India to a client here in the US are much more. There's a lot more scrutiny, lot more resistance. We have to answer USCIS, DOL, all these people, they would ask us questions in point blank, like, hey, you're trying to hire this project manager. Why can't you find a US citizen that does the same work? Why are you sending all these jobs back to India? What on earth is a good reason to fly that person all the way from India to the US if you yourself can put some work harder and find a US citizen, who can fill that role? So we are all getting that kind of a problem. Whereas this kind of a misuse traditionally didn't happen with Canada, UK, or European countries, so it's easier on immigration. So once these IT leaders form rapport with these remote software engineers, they also want to see them and meet them in person, work alongside with them in person here in the US. There's a desire to that. So all these reasons are causing for demand in nearshoring services and stuff. Coming back to why we want to do it is primarily the client demand, and also part of my vision is we want to become, like maybe 15-20 years down the lane, we want to become like a worldwide talent network and worldwide provider of services for like marquee clients in each of these countries. And I want to create that multinational, conglomerate of companies, like the Eliges or Manpower Group and all these different examples I have, in my industry. So they are like the reference points. That's pretty much my desire. But we will be slow and gradual. It will not be like overnight, leverage ourselves, buy multiple companies and do something nasty, bankrupt yourself in the process.
Right.
But yeah, so that's the idea there.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think you have the smarts, the passion, and the desire to get there, and you're always very positive. I really like that about you. I hope when you get to that point, we're still friends, and you
Of
don't forget
course,
about me.
of course, that wouldn't change. Yeah.
I've got to ask you, because you're not born in the U.S., what does American entrepreneurship mean for you? Because it's something that's very important to me. I love the ideals of this country. I love entrepreneurship. I feel like you're similar, or at least to me, it feels like you're born to be an American entrepreneur, not just an entrepreneur, an American entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I really think that. Is that something you think of, or do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share there?
Absolutely. Like US is like an American dream. I very much want to be an entrepreneur, American entrepreneur, and I feel every day that I'm living the American dream. Particularly from where we started in India, like a small town and lower middle class upbringing. We didn't have a lot of stuff, and one props to the U.S. economy. It's a fair system. That is why people like us, even people like us are able to excel. No corruption, no biases, things like that. So, and it's actually like mixed reactions, in terms of immigration in this country. Whether it's USCIS, DOL, all these guys, why they do all this stuff is also kind of justified. It's not like I like what they're doing, like throwing all these hurdles, making it difficult for people to settle here in the US or be a meaningful, contributing citizen to the US economy and all that. There's a good amount of misuse also. Because of that misuse, these government agencies are being are taking precautions. You cannot blame them, but it's not like a relatively easy or straightforward process for a person from India on a visa to be an entrepreneur here in the US. With that being said, though, like you just need to talk to the right lawyers and stuff like that. Any person, even sitting in India, can do business here in the US. It's not like because you're not a US citizen or a green card, you cannot do business here or you cannot be an entrepreneur here. You can. There are so many different ways to becoming an entrepreneur here, even on a visa, which I pursued some of those options in my path as well. But yeah, it really spooks me up and starts up mixed reactions because I myself have gone through several immigration scares and problems. Luckily, I followed the process and by hiring immigration attorneys and things like that, and them helping me along the way of understanding how to follow the system correctly and do the right things. I'm able to get my green card and settle down, become a permanent resident here and everything. But yeah, there are plenty of times where there's particularly at one point in time, after my master's period, where I had like a strong desire to stay and prove myself in this country, and my visa is expiring. I'm not able to get a job, and my parents are like, talking like, hey, you are a young guy, you just finished your master's, so you don't have to worry, come back to India. You can become an IAS officer, write UPSC exam. We'll send you to Delhi, write UPSC exam. Or you can become like a cop, a super cop, You can become IPS officer, IAS officer. There are plenty of great opportunities here. No need to feel like a failure because you did not get job after doing your master's here in the US or not getting visa. You should not think that this embarrasses you or this defines you. My parents used to tell all this to me in my daily Skype chats with them and all that, so that, at that point in time, there are like a lot of suicides and all that of students who are forced to go back to India because they didn't get a job here in the US, and they don't want to show their face to parents because they borrowed so much money from banks in India to come to US to pay tuition to US universities and study. So, at that point in time, even though my parents are saying that in a positive angle, I used to be, after I hang up with my parents, I used to be even more depressed that I'm making my parents think that way, that I'm not capable of getting a job here, all that sort of stuff. So, given all those kind of circumstances, I feel, if immigration is easier in this country, that would be nice. And there has to be specific visas, which would allow for entrepreneurs, in good faith. Like, if somebody wants to really start a company, let them stay in this country, provide a soft net, for them to land, at least from an immigration status point of view. If someone is really motivated to start a company, they should have a category of entrepreneurship visa that does not need them to put up like a lot of cash or prove financial ability. The person should be able to work in McDonald's and meet their living expenses, pay rent and living expenses, eat food here, and sit here on US soil and build a software application that changes the world. If that kind of a soft net can be provided for genuine cases, at least, that would be a great reform, I would say.
Thank you for sharing that. I can't say I disagree. I agree that I think it would be beneficial for the immigration process, especially for entrepreneurs from around the world, to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
But your story is incredible, from not being able to find a job to owning a company that employs over 200 people. That's an absolutely incredible story.
Yeah.
And appreciate your time today. We've been chatting for over an hour. But before we end the show, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we end the show with the same thing every time. It's called a hole-in-one. Your greatest piece of advice that someone can implement in either their life or business today.
Awesome. Yeah, sure. I would just say like one thing, which I personally believe and follow to this day. Have beautiful big dreams. Be very bold. Do not think small. Do not think average. Have very big, beautiful goals. Be bold, and once you have a big, beautiful dream, what happens is, how would I achieve? There is no way I can achieve that kind of a big dream. You would think like that because the means to achieving that dream is not clearly known at that point in time when you had the dream. But oftentimes, believing in the beauty of your big dreams is often enough. The universe itself will show you the path. In some form or factor or another, it will show you the path to achieving your dream. One clear example I will give, right from my childhood, like when I'm 11, 12, 13 years old, I used to have a poster of a Lamborghini in my room. And I used to think and believe that I'm going to drive a Lamborghini when I grow up. I have no freaking clue how I will make my money, if and when I will buy a Lambo, or anything like that. I keep looking at the car and feeling good and thinking like something good has to happen, some miracle has to happen in my life, and I will have my dream car in my pocket. Today, I have 2 Lambos in my garage. So that itself, should be a clear example to your viewers, that if you believe in the beauty of your dreams and let the universe, show you the path, you keep taking risk, you keep learning, you keep learning from your mistakes, and you keep believing on a daily basis. Believe your big dreams. Think about your big dreams every day. Does not matter whether those dreams really become manifest into your life or not. It does not matter, but you have to believe every day and keep remembering your dream. And slowly, if you do all the things correctly and a lot of other factors play in your favor, you will definitely achieve your dreams. And if none of that happens also, hey, what's wrong in a beautiful dream?
That's a great point.
Yeah, what's wrong? You can feel really good. Like picturing yourself in a Lambo, driving it at 160, 180, 90 miles an hour. Feels so good. Like as you do the gear shifts, you would shift backward in the seat. You can feel the wind in your hair. Enjoy the dream, man. It costs nothing, right?
Yeah.
So if it comes true, then great. Enjoy it for real.
Yeah.
If not, hey, what's wrong in a big dream? So yeah, that's like my mindset in general.
Got it.
Yeah.
Big, beautiful dreams.
Yes.
I appreciate your time today, Krishna.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.